So a watch is a very personal choice. It shows how you view yourself, your tastes, your wealth, and probably quite a bit more. But for politicians and world leaders, watches mean so much more than this, a potential source of criticism, something to align with your image, ethics, and national viewpoint. There's a lot to consider. So today, we're chatting through the watches of politicians and world leaders. Welcome to Doug's Watches, the thinking watch channel where I like to think about art, design, theory, philosophy, history, and how these all relate to the world of watches. And if that sounds good to you, do make sure to like and subscribe. Okay, so we're going to start with Keir Starmer, the current British Prime Minister, a PM elected without many seeming to love him, the lesser of two evils candidate. He has worked incredibly hard at his image to be the voice of reason, the great appeaser, the man who was born to a nurse and a toolmaker, the lawyer who helped two people battle McDonald's before climbing the ranks to Director of Public Prosecutions. He portrays this meritocratic upper-middle-class type who can have nicer things by virtue of hard work, but nothing too flashy. So yes, he has his steel integrated style automatic wristwatch, but this isn't an AP Royal Oak or Nautilus. It's a Tissot PRX Powermatic 80, a respectable choice, but hardly a flex. It maintains the image he works so hard for, which is in contrast to his predecessors. Rishi Sunak. Okay, Americans and international audience, I will get to your world leaders and some bad guys too, don't worry. I just need to get these out of the way first. Sunak was Starmer's conservative predecessor, and in public it's worth noting he rarely wore a watch. He was always the slightly awkward New Age man, the spreadsheet ninja retired investment banker, but as any retired banker ought to, he did have some nice watches. Allegedly a Rolex Perpetual 1908 reference M52 508 0006 and a Chopard LUC 1937 Classic. And why would he not wear these watches? Well, quite simply, it comes down to image. These are luxury watches, and the UK, as you'll probably have seen, hasn't been having the easiest of time of late. The last British politician for now then. Continuing in reverse chronological order is Boris Johnson, the bumbling old Etonian who descends from royalty. You'd expect a Patek Philippe Calatrava, or at the very least, a Rolex Day-Date or a pocket watch to ape the image of Churchill as he often tried to do. But instead, a quartz dress watch-looking Pulsar, white dial and golden tone. It looks like a Calatrava from a far shore, but it really isn't. See, I think there's something poetic in that choice. Johnson is all image, a rather calculated facade where minimal effort is king, and that Pulsar matches this. So there are a lot of Americans in my audience. Hello, it's time to talk the watches of your politicians. And of course, your current bling commander-in-chief has a rather bold watch collection. And surprise, surprise, there is not one of his Trump-branded watches in sight, but pieces befitting of the opulence of Trump Tower instead, a Patek Philippe Ellipse, a Vacheron Constantin Historiques 1968, and a Rolex Day-Date reference 18038. Mike Waltzer, Special Forces member turned congressman, sports a Rolex GMT Master 2 Batgirl. I'll let you come to your own conclusions on that one. And Rolex is a firm theme throughout the higher echelons of Trump's government, an incredibly different image to the held-back nature of British politicians. An interesting observation. Marco Rubio sports a Datejust, Kirsty Noem, the Secretary for Homeland Security, another Datejust, and the Ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, a two-tone sub. And this is a change in the optics of what we've seen before. Biden sported quite a few different luxury watches, an Omega Seamaster 300-meter, a quartz model I believe, a Speedy, a quartz Seiko chronograph, and of course a blue-dialed Datejust as well. Obama, a $300 York Grey chronograph or a Tag Heuer 1500 series. But then, once he left the Oval Office, he picked up a Rolex Cellini, notably in white gold, more subtle than what Trump wears. And the difference between the two eras of politicians are quite interesting. Trump and his cabinet are flexing their wealth publicly and frequently, whereas the previous Democrats still have nice things but are just a bit more reserved. Even when they are markers of wealth, they're not the instantly recognizable flex pieces. Just another sign we're living in a different time now. In fact, a brilliant marker of this is the previous Republican president, Trump, George W. Bush. He wore a Timex Easy Reader, an American quartz watch. It has the traditional dressy look, but it's simple, it isn't a flex, and it is in keeping with his America First outlook. Historical leaders. We'll continue with the American theme here, and the Rolex is not a new sight on the American political scene by any means. The Presidential, as it is known, of course takes its name after the president, or more exactly, Lyndon B. Johnson. But he wasn't the only American president to own one. Reagan had one, Eisenhower had one alongside his Vulcan cricket, Hoyer, chronograph and Hamilton, clearly a lover of watches and certainly Swiss watches. That's incredibly interesting, because under Eisenhower we had tariffs on watches. In 1954, the US Tariff Commission, basically at the request of Hamilton, Elgin and Waltham, introduced tariffs to protect these brands from a decline in sales at the hands of mass-produced Swiss watches. I'll have to pick this at another time, I think, though. But back on topic, historical world leaders frequently sport a Rolex. Martin Luther King Jr. wore one. JFK apparently had a Rolex gifted to him from Marilyn Monroe, but he could mainly be seen in an Omega tank-style piece. Rolexes also found their way to the wrists of Fidel Castro, who sported a GMT Master, and as well, Che Guevara with a sub. Obviously, Rolex gifted a watch to Churchill, however in reality he did appear to favour his pocket watch and Lemania chronograph. But looking at this history, I think it would be easy enough to put the claim forward that the watch of power is not actually the Patek Calatrava, but a Rolex sports watch, and it always has been. And I think that is incredibly interesting. In today's day and age, Rolex is less prominent on the wrist of world leaders, and that's not because they don't own the product, but the image of the product has changed. More people know them post-quartz crisis, and know them not as tool watches but instead items of the wealthy and elite. Which means if you're a politician not looking to appear as on the side of the rich, then you must shun the crown, at least in public, or where they're less showy models. Rapid-fire watches then. Quick shout-out to Justin Trudeau's IWC Portuguesa. Classy, traditional, different, like the man himself. Emmanuel Macron. He got into a spot of bother a couple of years back, taking his watch off in an interview. Some thought it was a ludicrously priced FP Journe chronometer bleu, but no, it was a Bell & Ross. A French brand, nicely played. He also has a Longines and pieces from Marchlab, another French brand. The Sultan of Brunei, as you'd expect for a man with a ridiculous car collection, has a ridiculous watchbox as well, of course with a Richard Mille. But the most ludicrous has to be the Cambodian PM, Hun Sen, with a Patek Philippe Grandmaster chime 51755, Richard Mille RM037, and an AP Royal Oak Offshore Grand Complication 26582CE. Needless to say, Cambodia have questionably free elections. The last rapid fire then, China's Xi Jinping, an Omega constellation. Odd, but you know what, I'm here for it. The constellation is an underrated integrated bracelet luxury watch, as I've said before. So what about the bad guys of the political world? And if we're talking bad guys in watches, I think we can only really start with Saddam Hussein. This is a fun one. Saddam used watches to help establish his power and maintain his power by giving watches with his face on throughout society. These could be Satina, Universal Genève, and even Longines at times. Yes, the story of how these watches came into being is on my videos to make list. It's just taking an awful lot of research. But again, like those flexing with a Rolex in America, Rolex was important for Saddam's status, including diamond-encrusted gold day-dates, one-upping the American presidents. And according to some sources on social media, he also had specially commissioned Pateks. Gaddafi then, a two-tone Rolex Datejust, potentially a Daytona or two, and a green dial Patek. There's certainly a theme going on here. Do the bad guys and the good like the same, or are all politicians actually just bad, want to be despots? That's probably a conversation for another time, and possibly a different channel. Now then, Kim Jong-un. North Korea have a shut-off market, unless you're one of the rulers, that is. He sports an IWC, not the normal Patek Philippe of your great dictator, but maybe that's intentional. It's branding like we saw with Starmer. He's new and in tune with the people. In case you couldn't tell, the irony is coming through there a bit. Now notably, he also has been seen with a Movado. Now this does not speak to a wider flex culture, but more so Asian flex culture. From my understanding, for some reason, Movado are a flex in Asia. Comment section, feel free to weigh in there with a bit of an explanation. The big baddie of our time though then, Vladimir Putin. In his time, we've seen FP Journes, Pateks, Blancpain, Lange, Breguet, the watches of men with money, and as we know, he has a lot of money. But again, the question of image comes up. Since the invasion of Ukraine, these haute horology pieces have been replaced with a Russian-made Raketa watch. A downgrade in luxury, but an upgrade in Russian nationalist PR. But then I'm going to turn to the biggest bad guy of all at the moment, or at least from what I can see as a British person. I'm interested in one man who is quite influential in my country at the moment, one Nigel Farage, an alumni of the prestigious Dulwich College, a London private school, and a former commodities trader with a history in politics where he appears to have made a lot of money. Information on this watch was not so easy to find. See, he wears suits and cufflinks. In photos, we can see a leather strap, but that's not much to go on, and it's notably not always present. One photo from a hug he was giving on Reddit sees his watch stick out from his sleeve, and one commenter says that it might be an IWC. And they might be right. It's minimal, but it has a long script on it, so it might be an old vintage piece, perhaps inherited or gifted at his 21st birthday. Either way, it's a little ironic that it might not be a British watch. But no matter what though, I decided to conclude my search there. After spending 10 minutes looking at Nigel Farage outfit inspiration, I didn't want my cookies thinking the worst of me. But what about the women on the political world scene? Well then, the Queen, a Patek woman, Kristalina Georgiev, the head of the IMF, a rather humble Rado, Christine Lagarde, Patek, Angela Merkel, her trusty German-made Boccia, Theresa May, she sported an Omega Constellation, Hillary Clinton, a Rolex Lady Datejust, Kamala Harris, Cartier. I feel there are fewer image motivations here from a political stance, but more so an image of being a valid voice. Owning a Patek, a Rolex, a Cartier, just like in the corporate world, can help you prove you deserve your spot at the table. Listen, this video has not been comprehensive, and I haven't even mentioned the watches of the USSR's leaders. There are loads of people that I could talk about in a video like this, and so we'd be here all day. But if you've got one that I haven't included, do make sure to put them below. And maybe I'll include them in a video of ranking the watches of politicians and world leaders. However, what we can learn from this is that watches, like many things in politics, are about image. Be that bolstering your credentials as an everyman, flexing your nationalistic tendency, or just downright flexing. To me at least, it seems rather interesting, and I hope it does to you too. If you want to help me make more of these videos, do consider becoming a channel member for extra videos and a few other perks. If not, leave a like and subscribe to see more of my work. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.